This is going to be an in-depth training video on how pivot tables and the reporting option works within our system. All of the pivot tables are located under reports, and then we have reports and outcomes. In some systems, this may say quick reports or report list, depending on your individual preference or how your system is set up. From there, you will click the report that option. Now, when you come to your quick report or report list screen, what you will see here is a series of reports. Everybody will see something different because of security settings. Pivot tables work on all reports except for the billing calendar reports. These are called SSRS reports, and it is a different reporting option. So what I'm going to do today is show you the basic layout of how the pivot tables will work. For that purpose, I'm going to come down here to my sample reports and also to my webinar reports to show you the basic layout. To begin with, what I'm going to do is show you a quick and easy COVID-19 assessment report. So here I'm going to click on the COVID-19, and from there I will get a date range. Now the date range may differ from report to report. This date range will look for any report or any COVID-19 testing that was done between the start date and the end date. This would be point A and this would be point B. When you enter that information in, you will put the date range that you want selected, and then from there you can pick whatever you would like. In most cases with pivot tables, you only want to enter the date range. This is because you don't want to filter down the information. This will allow you a greater option of filtering once you hit the pivot table. Now over here what we have is some systems are set to 500, some are set to 5,000. If you run a report and it just says 500 on the dot, more than likely you need to increase this to 5,000. We're also working on getting this up to almost 40,000 as well. Now you will select the pivot table and select pivot and then run report. Now once you have the pivot table, the name of the pivot will be up here. We are now going to go over this top section. The top section, this first drop down, is a place where you can store individual pivots within this data set. This pivot table is actually a data set that you can customize and store individual records or individual reports to one report itself. This will give you more diversity and more flexibility in the future, and you can do everything from one report. This report is what we refer to as a one-to-one. There is one form and there's one client form. It's a one-to-one ratio between the two. And this is where the saved results come in. You can pick your results and the table will populate with the information that you saved it to. Here you can delete a pivot by simply picking the pivot and then hitting delete. It will allow you to delete that pivot table. You can hit view raw data. When you click view raw data, what will happen is the following. Down below, you will have all of a spreadsheet of all the data set that makes up this report. Here, once you click view raw data, you can click on this icon here and click on it once, then click on it twice, and this will give you a spreadsheet you can download of the raw data. Important note, when you download the data, it will download this information, not the pivot table option. You can cut and paste this simply into any pivot table you would like into Excel by using that option, but this feature is coming later on in the system. You can then hit print report, and that will simply just print out what you have. And there's different printing options. All the printing options are different, so if you have a lot of data, you're going to want to do a landscape from a portrait and figure out what's the best layout for your printing options. From there, you can reload the report. Reloading the report will reset all of the criteria back to the base level. So as you can see here, I have these options here. If I hit reload report, now the report will reload, and now I will have everything to the base record. The last thing I'd like to cover is this number right here. You're going to need to know how the report is set up and put in notes for that report so that you can determine what that 38 is. What that 38 is for this report is a number of COVID-19 testing forms that we have in the system. Now, some people say, well, how do I know what that date is? This is where you'll want to talk to your systems administrator using the advanced ad hoc report writer. What you're able to do is insert training notes or training material or reporting notes for each individual report. So here, if I went to the COVID-19 or any report for that matter, I'm just going to pick one. Whatever I put in the query notes field right here will appear before I run the report on a screen. Whatever notes you put in there will appear right here, and this will help the end user knowing how the report is working and what it is actually doing. Now let's go back to the pivot table. The next part we're going to cover are these drop downs up here and the X and Y axis and select fields. First, before we do the table and the count, we need to bring some fields in. How this works is on a drag and drop concept. So I have 38 records. I want to see which clients those pertain to. Now, some people may say, hey, you got some duplicates here. No, I know how the report works. And so what this is saying is I have 2 COVID-19 testing results for Leah Becker. Well, how much you know that? Well, I can also bring in the testing date that's on the form, and I can see I did one on 7/3 and one on 7/9. And as you can see, those are now filtering down. Now, that is how the select fields work and the drag and drop. You have the y-axis, which will put things here, and you have the x-axis, which will put things up there. Now, when you're doing this, you're going to play around a lot. You're going to test different views and different functionalities of how you like to see it. So now, let's say I want to break it down by gender. I can slide gender up on the x-axis, and now I have gender, male, female. I can see exactly what was done and when it was done. Then if I wanted to, I could remove this back out and also get a gender count of how many people were tested. Now, the other thing you can do here is you can do side by side and have nothing on the top. So there, it would just say female, male, female, male. Now, that's not really one you would want to use. You may want to use results. Okay, so now I may have the result date and then the test results of when they tested. So here's now where you may say, I want to remove this filter. This is where one of the features to remove duplicates is going to come up here to this. I will hit Unique Client Value. Then I will get another drop down below that, and I want the client number because we know in our system everybody has a unique client number. So that will end up removing those unique client numbers from that, and you will see now that when I do this, I have all ones. So I can tell you that we have 21 clients that were tested, no duplicates. But if I remove that count, I can tell you that out of those 21, they've been tested 38 times. And then I can see that average within it. Now, let me move back over here to the client and counts. What you can also use here is these table functions. You can use a bar chart. You can use a heat map. A heat map, what it will do is it will change colors for individual amounts therein that you have, and it will bring the reddest ones will be the highest ones and the whitest ones will be the lower ones. And then you can do a row heat and then a column heap as well within the process, and it will go both ways. And I'll show a little bit more of these later on, and that's how those function. Now, one of the other features you can do is you can do multiple columns and multiple rows, but it does get a little confusing. So let's just use some basic demographics for that. So here, if I wanted to do a gender breakdown, I can slide it up here. Okay. Now, for gender, I'm going to want to do the unique client value of a client number. All right. So now I could also bring in gender and race. So here you have female. These are my female numbers. These are my male numbers. And then I could actually do zip code down here as well and filter that out as well. So there's a lot of different ways. As you can see, it can get more and more confusing as you do it. And we're going to go into a little bit more depth for other reports as well. But this report is simple because of the numbers it brings in. Now, you may say, look at this and go, we have a blank here. We do have a blank there. The pivot table reports will also allow you to troubleshoot problems. You may say, I need to know who those blank, everybody has to have a race. Okay. So now I need to know who that is. What I can do is click on race. What I like to do is actually move it over here so it's easier to see. And then I can filter down. All of the drop downs have a filtering option. If there is a value there, it will appear. Now, let's say, for example, you're looking for a race that doesn't exist in this list, but you have it in a drop down on the demographic form. It won't appear here unless that value is selected. So now I want to find these three. Select none, 3, apply. Client number, client name. Okay. Now I know exactly what it is. And I can see exactly. Now you may say, Dave, there was 3. You're right, because now I'm going to do a count and there were 3 records. And so now I have a total of 3, and I can tell you that Bob Becker and Leah Becker do not have a race in the system. And once again, once you select the filtering option, this will become italicized. And then you can change it as you want. You can pick as many as you want. Select all, select none. Now you can also use this filtering option. So here, if I went with, it will filter it down to just that, hit apply, and then I will have that in there as well. Okay, but as you can see here, I changed the race from 0 to white, and that's why those filters changed. Now, once I like a report, I simply come up here and hit save. I can save the name of the report and hit save. Now, if I change a report, let's say I want to do test results by gender, and I want to move in age. Now when I save the report, I can save it as a new report or rename it the same one and then hit save as well. Now this has been a brief overview of how the basic functionality works. Now we're going to go into a different report and see a little bit more complex filtering options and how to do some different things within the system. For this next section, what I've done is I've run a new report. Now earlier I mentioned that it's a one-to-one report. You have one form to one client form. This is a one-to-many report. Here on this report, we're bringing in demographic, placement, diagnosis, treatment plans, case note, and discharge information. So now I can do this in a variety of different ways and have everything stored to one table. So here, and with the case notes, I can tell you that I have 317 case notes for this time frame. So now let's begin on some of the new options that we can show here with the heat mapping, as well as the counts using unique values, also sum, average, median, and as well as these percentages down below. So let's take a look at how we can do these things. First of all, let's take a look at now we have the client name. I always bring the client number into every report because this will allow me to search on unique values. What I also do in several reports is I will also bring in the unique document serial number of certain forms so that I can drill into just that specific form for that specific issue. So what I have here now is I have my client name and I have a case note count. We can go back to our heat map and we can see that. But now let's look at some of the different features that we have that we can do with this as well. So one of the things that I may want to say is how many minutes did this client spend in session? So here I can go in here and say, so now I have the length of each session. Okay, but that doesn't really tell me. I can tell you that he had 3 30-minute sessions. What I'm looking for is a sum total of the minutes. This is how the sum feature works. I can now come down here and do the length of the session. I can drag that back over, and now I can tell you that Leah Becker spent 1,035 minutes in session. The other important thing to note is that you can put filters on this report, and they don't have to be in the Y and X axis. So for example, if I wanted to take out certain client numbers, I could take out certain client numbers. If I hit select none, and then I'm only going to bring in 2, I'm going to hit apply. And so I can filter it down. Once again, that is italicized, and I can see that as well. Here I'm going to bring everybody back in by hitting select all and hit apply. Now, let's take it a step further. So here what I want to do now is I want to show you how the table bar chart works. To do that, I'm going to reload the report because I've applied a couple filters here that I want to make sure that are nice and clean. When you click reload the report, you'll see the spinning wheel at the top, and depending on the size of the query and the size of the report, this may take some time. So here I'm going to bring in the client name, and then I'm going to come down here and I'm going to bring in a balance. To use the bar chart, you have to use a number in order to do that. Sometimes I have to slide it over here, and then what I will do is I will bring it up there. So here I can see the different balance amounts for each individual client across the board. What I'm looking for is an example of how to use this when you have numbers across the board of something like this. So now I can use bar chart, and what it will do is it'll bar it out as it relates to that individual row and line and do an individual bar chart of how that relates to this row. And that's how a table bar chart works. The row heat map, this is a good example of it as well, because now it will do it by row, not by column. Here I can then do it by column, and it will do it individually by column. There'll be a deep red down here. So there's a variety of different ways of doing this option within the system. It's just a matter of what you're trying to prove and how you're trying to prove it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to reload the report one more time and show you some more advanced features here in a second. Anytime you want to look at numbers, you're looking at averages and things of that nature. So what I'd like to do now is I want to know how many minutes we've spent working in a certain program giving a certain service. Not so much a client record, but I'm looking now for a program record. I'm looking for a global. So here I'm bringing in the program and the service type. Okay, and I may, let's say, bring the program up here. Now, as you can see here, I have 56 of these records where there's no program. Maybe it wasn't selected. I want to remove those. So now I'm going to remove those and apply that. I am now going to come to my service type, and I can look at only the service types I want. So let's say I'm going to hit select none, and now I'm just going to bring in a select number of service types. So now I have a more manageable graph right here of how I'd like to do this. I want to bring in, I want to count, and I want to sum up, but now I want to look at the average session of length of session, and this brings in the duration on the case note. So you may say, Dave, what is this telling me? What this is telling me is that in this service being offered in this program, the average session is 60 minutes. For this, it's 45. And then I can see it across the board. And I can also evaluate it here. So here I have 3 total statistics I can pull from one report. One, I can say, what's the average session for each provider? That's right down here. What is the average length of service for each service? It's right here. What is the overall total? Right here. But then I can take it a step further in saying, when I do evaluations in Boise, the average session is 45 minutes. So here I have 3 sets of data from one report where I can bring in the average. Now, you can also do the median. And now this is the median score. Now, here's the other advantage of this. I can also, some reports require percentages. This is where you're going to use these bottom 3 right here. Let's first look at the count as fractions. So now this is breaking out the percentage going down the rows. You're going to have 100% down here all the time. And this will total 100% as well down here. So I can tell you that 14.3% of our services are this. Okay. And this service makes up 100% of the healthcare providers. That's all the service they do. So now I can break it down by different percentages. Now let's take a look at the other percentages down below. You can do it by rows. So now our 100% is over here and the reverse is true. And then you could do it by totals. And so those totals will break out. Each row and each column will equal 100%. Now that we've explained all the functionality, once you have the pivot tables run, now I'm going to tell you the real benefit of how this will work. So here I'm going to come back and I'm going to say it's the end of the year and the end of the fiscal quarter. I'm going to go to my reports, and now I'm going to run the report for the end of the quarter and see how quickly I can get my numbers. So now I'm just going to come down to my sample reports, and I'm going to bring in the evidence-based practice report. I'm going to run it for the certified date range. So with this, I'm just going to run it for a larger period because this is my sample data. And then I'm going to make sure I hit 5,000, hit pivot, and then I'm going to run the report. The larger the data set, the larger the reports, the longer this will take, depending on the size. We have one customer where we had 42,000 records. This report took almost 2 minutes to run. But remember, 42,000 records is, think of it that way. It's an Excel sheet with 42,000 rows, and we've consolidated it now where you can just pick and choose. The main thing now is I want to run some reports. I can bring in any report I want. Primary goal status by median minutes. I have primary goal domain. This is my treatment plan goals. Here I can see, and now I have the status. When we achieve a goal, on average, it takes us 60 minutes. The median is 60-30 overall. Now I can need to come to my next report. Primary goal by percentage. I have all of my numbers already done. Here I've related primary goal and the status of that goal to the clinical diagnosis. Maybe you don't like that. This report's not working for me. Okay. I want to see how does it relate to worker? So now I want to make it a QA report. So now I can bring in the worker who entered the note. Bring it over the top here. And now I can instead of using an evaluation program tool, now I have an employee evaluation tool. And I can see who's succeeding and who's not. So then I could filter this down, take off discontinued, hit apply. Who's got the highest success rates? Who's doing well with certain goals? And then I can just keep on going down. So at the end of the quarter, I have all of my reports in one report, and I can report on the data. This concludes the pivot table training. If you have any questions, please contact us, and we'll be more than happy to help you in any way possible. Thank you very much for your time.